early 60s, there were 4 new franchises added to the MLB. One of these teams was the Washington Senators, who were terrible during their time in Washington, only having one very fluky winning season over their first 11 seasons. In fact, they were so bad they left DC and moved to Arlington, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, and became the Texas Rangers in 1972. Despite the change, the team was still dreadful and took another 25 years to even make the playoffs, which made them the last team in all of baseball to not make the playoffs. And, to make matters worse, they lost to the Yankees in the first round of the playoffs. After completely collapsing in 1997, they made it to the playoffs again in 1998 and 1999, only to get swept by the same Yankees both times. By 2010, the Rangers were the most irrelevant franchise in Major League Baseball, only winning one measly playoff game in their entire existence. But they gave themselves the chance to change their reputation by going 90-72 and winning the AL West. The Rangers were back in the playoffs for the first time in a decade, and they were facing the Tampa Bay Rays, who the Rangers managed to beat in 5 games. The Rangers managed to finally win a playoff series. I guess there's a first time for everything, but they have to face the Yankees, who ended their dreams in the 90s, and who were the defending World Series champions. But this is where the Rangers made it apparent that they had been struck by lightning. The Rangers won the 2010 ALCS in 6 games, and they were now going to the World Series. And better yet, they were facing the San Francisco Giants, who've also been quite irrelevant as of late. But the Rangers lost in 5 games. Even though the Rangers had come up short, the season was still a major success, and there was always next year. And the Rangers were built for the long term too, with elite veterans like Ian Kinsler and Adrian Beltre, along with young studs named Elvis Andrus and Derek Holland. And on top of that, they had the reigning MVP in Josh Hamilton. This gave the Rangers lightning rods for the Rangers to get struck by lightning again, which caused them to win 96 games and return to the World Series again, this time against the St. Louis Cardinals. In Game 1, there was a complete pitcher's duel, with runs coming at a premium, but the Cardinals managed to win 3-2. Game 2 was more of the same, but this time the Rangers won 2-1. The series now tied 1-1. Game 3 was much different, with neither starter lasting past the 4th inning, but the Cardinals managed to outslug the Rangers by scoring 16 runs. The Rangers were now down 2-1 and needed to turn things around. Fortunately, they did in Game 4 as they won 4-0 because of a 3-run homer by Mike Napoli. And in Game 5, the Rangers continued the successes of the previous game by winning 4-2 with Adrian Beltre and Mitch Moreland both homering and Mike Napoli hitting a 2-run double. Texas Rangers were 1 win away from winning the World Series, something that didn't seem remotely possible just a few years ago. In the bottom of the 7th, Game 6 was tied 4-4, but that changed when Adrian Beltre and Nelson Cruz hit back-to-back homers. And on top of that, Ian Kinsler drove in another run on a single to center field, making it a 7-4 ball game. Despite an Alan Craig homer in the bottom of the 8th, the Rangers were still up 7-5 in the bottom of the 9th, with 2 outs and 2 strikes. The Rangers were 1 out away from being World Series champions. There was one problem though. There were both runners at first and second base, and David Freese, the guy up at bat, hit a triple that tied the game up at 7 apiece, forcing the game to go to extra innings. In the top of the 10th, the Rangers came out swinging. They wanted to win more than anything in the world. After Elvis Andrus hit a 1-out single, Josh Hamilton stepped up to the plate and did what Josh Hamilton does best by hitting a 2-run homer to right center, making the game 9-7. In the bottom of the 10th, the Rangers quickly got into trouble by giving up 2 singles to start the inning. But they worked out of it, still maintaining a 1-run lead with 2 outs and 2 strikes. But they gave up an RBI single to Scott Feldman. At this point, the continuous blowings of leads began to affect the bats as they scored 0 runs in the top of the 11th. In the bottom of the 11th, David Freese was up first, and after reaching a full count, he hit a walk-off homer to center field. The Rangers just blew their shot at winning the World Series, and even though that was not the official end to the 2011 World Series, it was for the Rangers, as they lost Game 7, 6-2, and didn't score any runs after the first inning. In 2012, the Rangers were still doing pretty well, despite choking in gruesome fashion, and they had a 4-game lead for the AL West with 9 games left. But they collapsed again, losing 6 of 8. And in the final game of the season, they had to face the Oakland A's, whom they were tied with for the lead of the AL West. And in that final game, the Rangers lost 5-12. Fortunately, the Rangers qualified for the wild card, so their season wasn't over yet, but they lost to the Baltimore Orioles 5-1. 2013 season was more of the same for the Rangers, with them going 12-16 in September. Except this time, they missed out on the playoffs by 1 game. And in 2014, it seems like any chance this core had of winning a championship went out the window, as they finished in last place in the AL West with a 67-95 record. It seems like the old days of the Rangers were returning. But the Rangers weren't ready to give up just yet. In 2015, they won 88 games and made it back to the postseason by winning the AL West. But the old days had truly returned, as they were knocked out in the first round by the Toronto Blue Jays. In 2016, the Rangers made the playoffs again, but this time they were swept out by those same Blue Jays. This was the last time the Rangers made the playoffs with this team, as they slowly began to fall apart over the next few years. And in 2021, there are currently 0 players on their roster who were on the team in 2011. But why did the Rangers not win a World Series? Because baseball is an unfair sport and it does not care for the Cinderella stories, which is why a team with 11 rings beat a team with 0 rings.